When I was 14, I moved to this beautiful city on the seaside in my country, Varna. Maybe you've heard of it. At that time, I was a terrible student. So terrible that my parents decided to send me to a new school in the middle of the school year with this naive idea that I would become eventually a better student. They were so naive. I remember my first day in this new school. I entered the classroom feeling incredibly shy and probably a bit terrified. To make everything even worse, there was only one free place, and it happened to be next to a girl with dark hair and big black eyes. Big shock! I fell in love with this girl, and we ended up together in a long, joyful, and honestly quite childish relationship. But after 5 years, this girl, she broke up with me, and that left me truly devastated. She was my first love. She knew everything about me. And when she left me, I couldn't see a way forward. I felt worthless. I felt so worthless that I started asking myself all these kind of questions. Am I worth loving? Or even, is my life worth living? What makes it worth living? These questions, they were haunting me day and night. I couldn't go sleeping. One morning, I decided to go out on the street and start asking everyone I meet, hey, can you please tell me, what are the things in your life that make it meaningful and worth living? Some people were shocked of this question. Others were laughing. But everyone saw that I was serious, that I was sad, that I really needed an answer. But almost no one gave me one. And these were normal people. They haven't been just dumped by someone they love. They were people that I've randomly met on the street, and even they couldn't tell me what makes their life meaningful. Suddenly, I realized I wasn't alone in all this. There were many people like me who didn't know the answer either. At that moment, this question became much more interesting for me. And honestly, it's taken me more than 6 years to really answer it. The process began when I started thinking about the big areas in my life and whether they could be the thing that brought meaning in my life. So I started with my education. Well, when I told you that I was a terrible student, that was actually a bit of an understatement. I once set a record as the worst student in the entire history of my high school. Anyways, I graduated, barely knowing how to say my name in German. And guess what? This was a German language high school. Let's just say that I haven't changed things much in university. So, no, education wasn't the thing that brought meaning in my life. So was it my family then? Well, although they sent me to a whole new city as a kid, we still have a great relationship. But we all live in different places, and sadly they're not part of my day-to-day life. So that doesn't give me much more meaning either. So, was it my job then? Actually, still not. But only through my job, I found the meaning in my life. It started when, after a few years working for some, let's say, big companies, I co-founded a startup. In the beginning of that journey, I was reading resumes, a lot of resumes, or how we used to call them here in Europe, CVs. As I read, I began asking myself how people represent meaning and success in all those resumes. There were 3 main things that most of the people relied on: passions, strengths, and of course experience. In all those things, these people spoke about the amazing things they have done during their life and basically painted the picture of someone who is, constantly succeeding, constantly improving, constantly moving forward. These people, they eat success for breakfast. These people, they had nothing but success. At that moment, I realized these people, they were lying. They were lying like hell. But not everybody was. I also noticed that there is some small minority of people who represented meaning and success in a totally different way. This minority of people, they talked about their weaknesses, struggles, failures, fears, things much more similar to me. Things that all those people writing resumes about winning would be terrified that the world might find out about. And these people, they spoke about being an immigrant, struggling with disease, founding and failing company after company, coming out in a conservative country, all things that you're rarely going to see on a typical resume. What was even more strange was that these people, they wore these disadvantages as badges of honor. They spoke about them as something much more meaningful rather than, strengths, passion, experience. Moreover, they view these things as something that has contributed to their success. And don't get me wrong, these people were also successful. They also had their shiny professional achievements. But these people, they were brave enough to show the full version of themselves. And the difference between this brave minority and these people who spoke only about success was that they had the courage to admit their fears and failures first to themselves and then to others. I realized that I could only see and connect with the real person behind the resume if I was able to see the full picture, struggles, experience, successes, achievements, everything. Once I started seeing this pattern, I asked myself, if I had to create a resume, what it would look like? Well, I would probably have been talking like things like working for big companies, co-founding a startup, speaking various languages, But that would be a lie. Specifically, a lie of omission. All these things are true, but the resume that speaks only about these successes, well, that's not the real me. The real me was this terrible student who got dumped by someone he loved because he was going nowhere in life. It would be the real me if I mentioned that I eventually did learn German. Not because I was studying in a German language high school, working in a German company, or even living in Germany. And for the record, I actually did all these things, but I still couldn't speak German. I learned it only because my first love thought I would never be able to. I was afraid that she might be right, that I would be failure not only in school, but also in real life. That fear made me learn a language I had carefully managed not to learn for more than 8 years. That fear made me pack my stuff and go study in a foreign country. That fear made me stick with myself and actually be okay with that, rather than strive to be someone else's perfect boyfriend, child, or even new employee. Because of that fear, I learned that every one of us has a real, unique, beautiful version of themselves. But unfortunately, most of the time, we're running away of this real version because of the same fear. Fear that someone, whether it's our current love or future employer, could reject us. What I learned through this fear, failure, and later success was much more meaningful for me rather than any good grades, cool jobs, or anything else in my life. I realized that if I had to tell my story on a resume or during a TED talk, what I've learned during this failure and how I found meaning in my life, these two things, they should be there. Today, I'm still reading resumes, and there's still a lot of resumes. But now, when I'm reading, I'm mostly looking for these weaknesses, struggles, failures, all these personal details that speak volumes about the person behind the resume. They speak volumes about the real human behind the resume. Because we're all humans. When we're hiring, when we're promoting, even when we're looking for a life partner. And we want to see the real human behind the resume, not the superhuman we all pretend to be. So, I'm not asking you to share all your dirty laundry. I'm not asking you to share random details of your life. But I'm asking you not to pretend to live this LinkedIn version of your life, full of professional achievements and no personal story behind it. Because in my experience, you hurt yourself by hiding all these vulnerable details. Because the truth is, we all have them. And as much as we hate to admit it, most of the times, these are the things that make our life story meaningful and worth spreading. So today, I'm asking you the same question I've asked random people on the street all those years ago. What are the things in your life that make it meaningful and worth living? Danke.